Welcome everyone to Vested Interest. This is Shane. In this video, we are going to cover a topic that is not often discussed. Time is money. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to take a look at a couple different stocks, ETFs really, SPLG, which tracks the S&P 500, and SCHD, a lot of people's favorite dividend growth ETF. It is one I hold in my portfolio. I do not have SPLG. I believe I have SPLG in my daughter's custodial account. But we're going to take a look at the results over 20, 30 plus years to show that it's not only the amount you invest, it's also the time you have allocated to that. So the earlier you start, the more time you'll have, the more it will compound over time. And then also kind of discuss the two different strategies and talk about total return, because I think some people think total return equals fast growth all the time, and that's not necessarily the case. So we're going to talk about that as well. But let's get into the video, and I will stop jabbering about it. Now, one last thing before we get into the video, if you could do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button down below if you find any value in the content. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Join us on this journey to financial freedom. Join the Vested Interest community. Click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I put out any new content. I do a stock pick of the day video series Monday through Thursday typically. We take a look at a company stock that's pulled back on the day, see if it's presenting any value by running through my screener. And I do a portfolio update every Sunday where I cover all my investments for the weeks, any sales that I make out of the portfolio, any dividends received, and possibly any options that I've run for the week as well. I really appreciate all the subscribers and the viewers out there. You guys are awesome. The channel continues to grow because of people like you. And for those of you who haven't, doing all that doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help out the channel. There's also the thanks button down below. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, you can use that down below also. All right. First up, we're going to take a look at SPLG. We're going to take a look at this over 3 different time frames. So all of these time frames represent the ability to retire at 55 years old, right? So earlier than the typical retirement of 65, but they represent different investing time frames. So you've got a 37 years that would represent 18 to 55. So if you started right whenever you turned 18, 30 years that would represent from the time you were 25 to 55, 30 years, and then 20 years. Got a little late start at 35 to 55 and only had 20 years to invest. This is what it would look like. You could do, same thing. Maybe if you're 45 like I am and you want to retire in 10 years, what is it, 45 to 55, you could do the same thing. All the criteria is going to be exactly the same. We're looking at the SPLG, right? SPLG, S&P, the State Street Spider S&P 500 ETF. So this tracks the S&P 500, all the same, you see, all the same there. And then the criteria is going to be, it's an individual ETF. We're going to contribute monthly. The drip is going to be on. They all say the same thing. We are starting with 1 share. So basically you need, right now, the current price of that is $71.51 or around about there, depending on when you're watching this video. And we're going to start with 1 share. So you need less than $100 to get started. You're going to contribute $2,400 every year. That's an annual contribution monthly. So that breaks down to $200 a month, $50 a week, right? It's not a ton of money. Now, dividend tax rate is at 15%. I believe this is qualified dividends. I'm not sure what the tax dividend allocation in your state might be, but I think mine is $1,000. The first $1,000 in dividends is tax free, so I put in $1,000. It's all the same. Annual dividend starting yield for this particular ETF that tracks the S&P 500 is 1.2 or 1.32%. Same 1.32%, 1.32%. Expected annual dividend amount increase. I just went over the last year. It increased by 9.23%. So I plugged that in, saying that it's going to increase around that same amount every year. Expected annual share price appreciation. I went a little low. I think the S&P is around 9 to 10% growth. I went an 8% growth. 37 years invested. Again, this one over here to the left is going to represent 18 to 55. 30 years invested is going to represent 25 to 55. And 20 years invested is going to represent 35 to 55. And then here is the results. So after $2,400 a month, or $2,400 a year, annual contributions, $200 a month, starting with $71.51, 1 whole share. At the end of that 37 years, if you were 18 today and started investing, you would have $714,428.71 for your total portfolio. Total return would be 703.89%. Average annual return at 5.79%. Your annual dividend income, what you would be receiving in dividends on a yearly basis, would be $14,471.19. Your total dividend payments over the entire 37 years would have been $118,333.49. Now, you would have been reinvesting that, right? So that would have been back because you've got the drip set here. Yield on cost would be 15.03%. Same thing, we can jump over here and look at, right, 7 years less. So after 30 years, this was 37 over to the right. So you're losing 7 years because you didn't start investing until you were 25, right? These are just hypothetical situations. So if someone's out there 25 years old right now and you started investing, you had $71.51, you went and bought one share of SPLG right now. You contributed $200 a month or $2,400 a year. We've got it monthly, so $2,400 a month total, but $2,400 a year total, but $200 a month. Same, dividend tax rate at 15%, qualified dividends. Again, you can change these calculators, and this calculator is from MarketBeat. It's their dividend calculator. So if you wanted to do this yourself, go over to MarketBeat, plug into Google or Bing or whichever, Ask Jeeves, whatever search engine you want, MarketBeat dividend calculator, it should come up, and you can play around with these numbers yourself. But same numbers, right? It's an ending balance, $362,429.71. Total return is only 402.88%. So you can already see you've got almost half as much of an ending balance and almost half as much as a total return with just losing 7 years, right? Well, let's keep going. Annual dividend income is only $6,776.99. So again, almost half what you would have just with 7 years longer if you started at 18 instead of 25. Total dividends received over the 30 years would be $51,625.57. Isn't that crazy how 7 years impacts the numbers so much? And then yield on cost is only 8.71%. But then we jump down again, and let's say you started later, right? Oh, I didn't really start investing until I was 35. Maybe there's some of you out there who are thinking about starting investing and you are 35. Well, here's what it would look like with the same type of investment, same S&P 500 ETF, same monthly contributions, starting with the same one share, $71.51. You go buy yourself that one share. You say, I'm going to contribute $200 a month every year for the next 20 years. Your portfolio would be $130,296.33. Total return 171.05%. Average annual return 5.11%. Annual dividend income $2,173.54. Total dividends received over that 20 years, $13,387.83 with a yield on cost of 4.22%. Now, you should be seeing that time really is money, right? Same amount contributed per month, same starting one share, same share price, same growth. The only thing that has changed here is the time invested. 37 years versus 30 years versus 20 years. So the earlier you start putting in the same amount year after year after year, the better off you will be, the longer you can go. Now, obviously, if you grew this over time, your ending portfolio would be even larger if you kept the drip set on and you went out the same time, or it gets you to your goal sooner, right? So you can impact. You can't change time. Time's going to pass regardless. You can't change when you started. You can change the amount, right? You could increase your annual contributions to try to catch that up. But the best driver of your portfolio is going to be that time. All right, that's SPLG. Let's go look at SCHD under the same situations, the 37 years, 30 years, and 20 years. All right, now let's jump over to SCHD. Again, same MarketBeat's dividend calculator, right? The only difference is we're going to look at SCHD instead of SPLG. Everything's going to stay the same. Individual ETF. I know it says stock, but it's the ETF. We're still going to do monthly contributions. We're going to do $2,400 a year, so the same $200 a month. The only difference is the starting price of the share, $28.07, but we're starting with one share. Just like we started with one share of SPLG, it's just a different cost per share. DRIP is still set, so we're going to be reinvesting dividends. 15% tax rate, the same $1,000 exempt. Annual dividend yield. This annual dividend yield is much higher, right? SPLG's was 1.23%. SCHD starting dividend yield is 3.37%. So much higher dividend yield starting out. A little bit lower growth on the dividends per year. This is actually a low estimate. I mean, they've been growing 10 to 12% a year, so I'm on the low side here. SPLG, we plugged in 9.23%, so we're going a little bit lower than what we projected for SPLG. But we also are going with less year-over-year price per share appreciation, so 6% instead of the 8% that we had for SPLG. So higher dividend yield, little lower dividend growth, lower per year growth, same 37 years invested, 30 years invested, 20 years invested. So same representation of 18 to 55, 25 to 55, 35 to 55. Now for the results. Ending balance after 37 years of investing, $200 a month, no increases in contributions, would be a portfolio of $1,217,287.15. A total return of 1,270%, 1,270.39% actually. Average annual return of 7.33%. Annual dividend income from this portfolio after 37 years would be $120,340.33 per year. You'd get that in dividends every year, maybe more than what you're making in your job right now after 37 years at 55 years old. If you were to start at 18, contributing $200 a month to this portfolio, just SCHD. Total dividends received over that 37 years, reinvested back into the portfolio because you do have the drip set, $676,907, right? So that's a big driver of the portfolio, that reinvested dividends. So the higher yield, even with a lower overall growth, expected price per appreciation 6%, and lower dividend amount 9.9% versus 9.23%, ends up with significantly more reinvested over that 37 years. We'll see that here in a little bit whenever we compare SPLG to SCHD over the same time frames on the next slide. But yield on cost would be 118.22%. Now, same thing though here with SCHD. If you just go 7 years shorter, right, you start investing at 25 instead of 55, that same $200 a month, $2,400 a year, reinvesting, the drip still on, exempt status, $1,000 per year in dividends. Same numbers. Everything's the same. Same starting dividend yield, same share, starting shares, one share, same price, everything. Just the years are different. It drops down to $490,694.60 for your ending balance compared to $1.2 million. Total return is only 581% compared to 1,270. Average annual return, a little lower at 6.6%. Annual dividend income is still respectable, right? You're making $39,592.61 in dividends after 30 years. Total dividends received $228,956.60. Yield on cost 48.78%. Now we drop down to the last scenario. This is someone starting a little bit later. You're 35 years old. You're going to try to retire at 55, investing the same $200 a month. Buying that same one share to start at $28.07. You got the drip set. Everything's the same. Ending balance, $145,136.71. Total return, only 202.19%. Average annual return, 5.69%. Annual dividend income, $8,781.63. $45,994.87 in reinvested dividends because you have the drip set. Yield on cost is only 16.55%. So it doesn't matter which investing strategy you choose, whether it's dividend investing, whether it's tracking the S&P 500 like Warren Buffett would recommend, time is going to be the biggest driver. And the later you start, the more you are going to have to invest to get to that end goal that you want to get to. So time is going to be the biggest driver. Now, let's look at the differences in investing strategy and what time looks like compared to the two. All right, SPLG on the left, SCHD over here on the right. After 20 years, ending balance $130,296.33 for SPLG. After 20 years for SCHD, $145,136.71. Annual dividend income, $8,781.63 versus $2,173.54. So even with less time, 20 years, right? Only investing 20 years, The higher starting dividend yield with the slower growth gave me a higher ending balance, a higher total return, a higher average annual return, a higher annual dividend income, more dividends reinvested, which is the biggest driver of growing this portfolio beyond time, the compounding effect, right? That's what that is. The total dividend payments received right there, that's part of that compounding effect. That's that dividend snowball. Only recontributing $13,387 here, contributing $45,994 here. That is a huge difference in compounding. Same thing if you drop down to 30 years, ending balance for SPLG, so the S&P 500, $362,429.71, 402% return, 5.53% annual return, $6,776.99 in annual dividends, $51,000 in dividends reinvested, yield on cost 8.7%, compared to SCHD, investing that same $200 a month with slower price appreciation and slower dividend growth, still leads you to $490,694.80, right? About $130,000 more in ending balance, 581.25% return versus a 402% return. So not a huge difference, but I mean 180% return is pretty significant. Difference is pretty significant. 6.6 annual return to 5.53. Here's the big difference again. Annual dividend income, $39,592.61 versus the $6,700 here. And the dividends reinvested, right? Another main grower of the portfolio. Time is the biggest, but here's the other one. Compounding that interest. $228,956.60 in dividends reinvested versus $51,000. That's a huge driver for this portfolio. 48.78% yield on cost versus 8.71. And lastly, if you're 18, you wanted to start investing today, what should you choose? How should you be investing? Everyone's talking about total return. Let's look at total return. If these, again, now I'm not saying SPLG is going to grow at the same rates we plugged in, or SCHD is going to grow at those rates. But if they grew at similar rates, even a little bit slower growth for one versus the other, these are just the differences. This is just what the calculator says. Your total dividend portfolio after 37 years, $714,428.71. And most people would be very, very happy with that total ending balance, total return of 703.89%. For those who are just focused on total return, that's a very good total return. Average annual return, 5.79%. Annual dividend income of 14,471%. I mean, it's decent. You're probably not living off of it very well, but it's decent. You're going to have to start selling off part of your portfolio if you want to live beyond that. Total dividend payments over those 37 years, $118,000. So again, that's part of the driver of this portfolio, those reinvested dividends, the compound interest right there from those reinvested dividends. Yield on cost of 15.03%, which is significant. $118,333.49 is significant. But then let's look at SCHD, starting with a higher dividend yield, of course, but same amount of years invested, same $200 a month, equals an ending balance of $1,217,287.15. Total return of $1,270.39%. Average annual return of 7.33%. Here it is. Are you going to be able to live off $120,340.33 in retirement? Or are you going to be able to live off $14,471.19? I think this person over here is going to live a lot nicer and more comfortable lifestyle. And part of the reason for that is the dividend compounding effect. Total dividend payments over 37 years reinvested, $676,907, 118.22% yield on cost. So I know a lot of people focus on total return and think you need fast-growing stocks to get there. That is not necessarily the case. Sometimes the turtle wins the race over time. But you decide which way you want to go. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different timeline. Everyone has different goals. Well, that is it for this one. I just really wanted to go over that dividend calculator, and they are fun to use. Again, just because a calculator spits out some numbers, you plug in some criteria in there that you think you could use. Market beat dividend calculator is the one that I was looking at today. So if you want to play around with that, go ahead and, like I said, Google, Bing, Ask Jeeves, whatever search engine that you use, plug in market beat dividend calculator. You can, and I'm not affiliated with it, or this is not a paid ad for this. It's just the one that I used today. There are a lot of different ones out there. I like this one. And you can play around with it. You know, what ETF or index funds are you thinking of, or what individual stocks, if you wanted to look at, you could plug them in as well. And that's part of the way you can figure out your investing strategy. What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Could be a blend of a couple different funds. If you wanted to go with just one, there's plenty of ETFs, index funds out there. We compared SPLG, which tracks that State Street Spider S&P 500 ETF, tracks the S&P 500, and SCHD, that's Schwab's dividend growth ETF. That's Schwab is the one I have in my portfolio, but I also have VTI, which is similar to SPLG. And part of the reason that I bought it was whenever I did the calculator and looked at them, total return looked better for SCHD actually than SPLG. But there's nothing wrong with having them both, or if you want to just go one way or the other, that's up to you. It all depends on your investing strategy. I wanted to show you the differences that time has on your portfolio, and then two different strategies to show you what that time could look like over, like I said, 20, 30, 37 years. All of those scenarios, though, keep in mind, was retiring at 55. Either starting from 18 to 55, that's 37 years, 25 to 55, that's 30 years, or 35 to 55, that's only 20 years. And if you had to start later in life, you're going to have to put in a lot more. I think it was evident. I hope that showed that. That's what I wanted to get across today. As always, appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to show me some love. Hit that thumbs up, ring the notification bell. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Join us on this journey to financial freedom. Join the vested interest community. I do personally read and respond to the comments. I'm always interested to read your questions, opinions, or suggestions for future topics. Again, I do the Stock Pick of the Day series and a portfolio update every Sunday. Monday through Thursday is the Stock Pick of the Day series. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can come back and visit us from time to time and watch those videos. See what I'm investing in on Sunday. And this is Shane signing off, wishing peace and prosperity to you and yours. And remember, financial security comes to those who take a vested interest. Hey, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for watching the videos. And we will see you in the next one. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this presentation should be considered financial advice. I'm only sharing my opinion and investing in journey for educational and entertainment purposes. Investing involves risk. You can lose money. You should never invest any amount you're not comfortable losing. Always do your own research. Invest based on your situation and circumstances, and select a criteria or seek the advice and counsel of a certified financial advisor.